Hello guys, my name is André. I'm the founder and the CEO of Asetek. Today we're going to talk about our newest innovation, or our newest product if you want, add-on, accessory, whatever you want to call it. Essentially an Elastomer Kit. Different hardnesses that you can apply in your brake pedals. It could be the Invicta, it could be the Forte, it could be the Prima pedals. The way they work is like a traffic light. Green, yellow and red, and then in between you have colors as well. So there's like 5 different hardnesses. The reason we came out with this kit is basically to give you more variants, to make sure you use the second stage. What we can see is that you guys love the second stage or the 2-stage system, but a lot of you are also not braking hard enough to actually take advantage of the second stage. And as usual, when I tell you something, I do it with a racing background and not a sim racing background. So for example, when we say, well, you need to press 100 bars or you need to press 100 kilos, that's what you do in a race car. You may have a different wish at home, or you may not be able to do it, or your kid may be racing and with legs this thick it can be difficult. So that's why we have this different selection of elastomers now. What we ship with the Invicta standard is the green, the white and the black, and they actually correspond to the dark green, the yellow and the orange. So if you're happy with what you have within this range, and if you hit the second stage and you can trail brake no problem, this kit is not for you. It makes no sense. But if at the other hand you want more extremes, then we now have it. We have one that's significantly softer, and we have one that's significantly harder, and we have customers asking for both. Then the next obvious question is, why don't you make a kit for Invicta owners where you only have these? Well, that's because before we have made a new part number, before we have done the packing, before we've done the shipping, it would end up at almost the same cost. So you can consider it like you have extras by doing it like this. I know a lot of you sim racers pay attention to detail, so you can see here there's a pretty big chamfer on this one, and on the yellow one we have a pretty small chamfer. So what is that? That's actually the calibration we use. So when we cut these from the raw material, we give them these chamfers to reach the let's say tolerance range that we want. So it's not bad manufacturing that you may have some without chamfer, you have some with a big chamfer, you have some with a small chamfer. It's simply because that we calibrate them so they're within the window that we want, and we can guarantee you that there's always going to be a difference. If you look at the graphs here also, what you can see is you now have 5 different graphs. No surprise, they correspond to each of the elastomers. And now you can see exactly what's required to hit the second stage. By example, we can take the Forte and say that I have the green elastomer in and I just floor it no matter what I do. Then you could probably go to the yellow one, where instead of just shy of 400, you would need 600 Newton of pedal force. You can put in the elastomer you like, and you can see in the table what it corresponds to. You can also see it in your software, but you can also do it the other way around, that if you have a certain target that you want to hit, you can use the table to tell you which elastomer you should have in. Another, I would not call it misunderstanding or misconception, but something that's factual, is that we see our customers and users, they compare elastomers across pedals. So if you look at the Invicta, so the Forte system, and you look at the green, you'll see to hit the second stage, you will need roughly 400 newtons of force, so that's 40 kilos of pedal pressure. Whereas if we look at the Forte graph with that green elastomer, you actually only need a little bit more than half, and that's because that system is much stronger. So it doesn't really make sense that you as an Invicta owner is comparing elastomers to a Forte owner. Be careful with that, because the Forte guy, he may tell you this is really easy, and you're like, whoa, I really have to hit it hard or kick it hard to reach the second stage. So that's the explanation for that. Another thing that's important to realize when talking elastomers, hardnesses, etc., is it doesn't matter which travel your cylinder has. So if you run the normal brake piston in the Forte, you have one hardness to reach the second stage. But if you want to have the same hardness to reach the second stage, but with the long travel kit, you actually need to change the elastomer. And the reason for that is if we do a small physics lesson here. So we look at this orange elastomer and say, I'm actually happy with that, with the normal brake travel of my Invicta system. But I would like to have the longer travel, so I would like to put in the long travel kit. So how do I make sure I then get the same brake hardness and stiffness that I like? So if we look at it here, the spring equation for a normal spring, it's called F equals K times X. F in this case is the force, so that's the force that we apply on the pedal. K is a constant, a spring constant, and X is the amount of travel. I know with 1000 Newton, this one will move 20 millimeters. That's to second stage, that we already know, that's a locked number. It's always 20 millimeters of pedal travels to hit the second stage. So that's a fixed. What is K then? Well, then K equals 50 Newton per millimeter. So if you hypothetically said, okay, I'm just going to use this in my long travel kit now, then what will the result be? Then the result will be that instead of 20 millimeters of travel, we now have 30 millimeters of travel. We know the spring constant is 50. 30 times 50 is 1500 Newton. So if you put in the long travel kit with the same elastomer, in this case, you would have to press 50% harder. So the other way, and say, okay, what if I don't want to press harder? I want the same, I just want the more travel. To make it easy, I know that the yellow one has a spring constant of 33.3, and therefore it makes sense. 1000 Newton again, same pedal force in both cases to hit the second stage. Now it's 30 millimeters instead of 20 millimeters, and with a spring constant of 33.3, it gives you exactly 1000 Newton. So that means that depending on the long travel kit or the normal travel kit, you need the orange or the yellow in this case. So this is also what this kit can be used for. But again, just keep in mind, if you compare with someone, one has a long travel kit, the other one doesn't, then you cannot really compare the elastomers you use. So we also get a lot of questions about trail braking. What is trail braking? Why do we need it? Essentially, you use trail braking for two things. One, you can brake later, much later, as I'm going to show you. And number two, to control the car. Not many people realize it, but you actually control the car as much with your feet as you do with your hands in terms of rotation, in terms of applying grip to either the rear or the front of the car. So as you can see, I here have a race car. Behind me I have a racetrack. So we are now traveling down the straightaway. And as you can see, the fluid is of course stable. There's no acceleration really going on. We're just going at full force. And let's say this is our brake point. When we brake, the car will dip with the front. We get all the weight on the front wheels. That's exactly where we want it, because we want maximum grip when we are turning in. Let's say you think, now I have braked hard enough and long enough. As soon as you let go of the brake pedal fast, the car will flip back. Now you'll have all the weight on the rear wheels. And what happens when you go into the corner, you'll do like this. The car will push, it will understeer. And that's your fault. It's not a car setup problem. That's simply because you let go of the brake way too early and way too abrupt. So that's really what trail braking is all about. You can brake later and you can keep the load on the front tires, meaning that the car will be much easier to turn into apex instead of understeering all the way out here in the dirt, off track, lose a lot of time. So just as a small theory lesson, what this fuss about trail braking is all about. And if you have not tried it yet, or if you don't use it, you should really try it, because it's not a SimSports phenomenon. It's what real race car drivers do. And of course, if you have a really fast corner, you don't use trail braking. Then you just take off the speed you need to take off, and then you enter the corner. But in slow corners, technical corners, tight apex, etc., trail braking can really do a massive difference. A few other things I would like to touch upon is we get a lot of questions about the long travel kit. So here is the long travel piston for the Forte cylinder. And then some people are saying, why don't you make one for the Forte pedals? That's because the Forte pedals already have 12 to 14 millimeters more travel than the Invicta. And as you know, it's not a clutch or a throttle we are doing, it's a brake. We want the second stage to engage, so we believe that there is plenty of travel. Today I'm going to show you how to adjust our brakes to take advantage of our full brake system here. So here I have a set of Forte pedals. It could be the Invicta, then it's just a hydraulic setup. But I have taken the elastomer out because I'm not strong enough to obviously push it with my hands. But the second stage is when this piston is hitting the cylinder like this. Now I'm in the second stage, and now the brake pedal is obviously really hard. But because of our system here with the rubber ring, even if I push hard now, it will still be able to detect changes in pressure. And that's exactly what you want for the trail braking, that you hit it hard and then you almost bend your toes backwards in the boot, and then these small deflections here will actually start decreasing the pressure, and then you have a really good feeling for the trail braking. Obviously it's a simulation because it's made of rubber, whereas in the Invicta system, when the piston hits the cylinder, then it is actually the fluid that you are trying to compress, and the pressure will go up. So that's really what you want to achieve with any of our pedals. Let's take an example. You put in the red one and you can hardly do it. You put in a softer one, you brake as hard as you normally do, not exaggerated, brake as you normally do. And if you're still not hitting the second stage, put in a softer one until you're comfortable. And then you will take advantage of our full brake system. So a lot of people are asking us, how do we adjust the pedals? And there is not one right way to say this is always how we do it, because it is individual. So we just pick a random one, we pick the softest one, and then I can tell you at least what I do. So I put this in, of course, and then I make sure there's no preload whatsoever, because having preload on a brake system is like having a race car where the brake is dragging. So what I do, and that's by the way how they come from our factory, I put it in just so it touches, and then I give it half a revolution, then I log it here, and then I have this small amount of play also, so I can rest my foot or something like that without the brake going nuts. And then let's go to the simulator, and then we'll try some let's say some real life examples of these different elastomers. So in front of me here we have a set of Invicta pedals. We put in the long travel kit, we put in the black elastomer, and here I have the green one, the new one, that will correspond to that. For me to hit the second stage now, I know because I have seen in our graphs that will require that I press roughly 900 Newton, 90 kilos. I have seen a lot of you who's trying to brake with your ankle. And if you do that, it's no wonder that you cannot really hit the brake pressures that you need or you want to, if you want to follow what we're doing here. So the way you brake is you actually lock your ankle and then you hit the pedal like this. And in terms of the heel rest is, in my opinion, not something you use at all when you're braking. Because if you do, then you're down to using your ankle again. You push the brake, now it's in, and if I want to trail brake now, let's see, now it's in the second stage, then I pretty much move my toes backwards, and then you can see it on the piston that it's slowly moving out. Now I'm approaching apex, and then I let go completely. So that's the idea. So what we'll do now is I'll try to put in a softer elastomer and a harder elastomer. Let's try to do that. So what we did now is we put in our softest elastomer, the light green one of our new kit. For me, I already know this is going to be too soft, but if you don't brake as hard or it's not comfortable braking as hard, then this may be for you. But just to illustrate, for me, just doing what we were not supposed to do, braking with our ankle, I can actually put this into the second stage easily. You can hear it, it just bottoms out really easily when I lock my ankle and use my thigh. So for you or for somebody else, this could be the right way. You brake hard as you're comfortable with, and when you do that, you should hit the second stage. So now we'll try to go in the other direction and put in our orange elastomer and see how that goes. So now I put in the orange elastomer, and that's a tough one because to hit the second stage, I would now need to brake with 1500 Newton of force on the pedal, or 150 kilos. And then you can say, why do you do that? That's crazy, nobody brakes that hard. Keep in mind that if you have the short travel kit in, the normal kit, it's significantly less. And also if you use the Forte pedals, it's also significantly less because the gearing ratio in the Forte is much stronger. So that's why we have it. But let's just try it out here. For sure, just using the ankle does not really do anything. I really have to hit it here. To be honest, it doesn't feel out of the ordinary for how I would brake in a Formula car. Just to repeat, when I'm in the second stage here, I can keep pushing, and that's what you'll see in the software. The piston is not really moving, but still when I keep pushing the brake pedal, you will see the brake pressure go up and down. And that's exactly what we do in our Forte system as well. There it's just a simulation. To repeat it, no matter if it's the Invicta, it's the Forte, you want to hit the second stage, you don't want to hit it too easily. Play around with the elastomer, the short travel, the long travel, whatever works the best for you, and then find your favorite elastomer. I hope you will enjoy our new Elastomer Kit, that's why we made it, and see you on a virtual racetrack out there. Boom.